What is up, everybody, and welcome into the All-NBA show with Adam Mares and Tim Legler. We got a great show planned for you today. The Sacramento Kings get De'Aaron Fox back, and they look like the Kings of last year, maybe even better, as they dominate the Cleveland Cavaliers. We also get the Boston Celtics closing things up against the Knicks behind a great Jason Tatum fourth quarter. We're also going to preview Chet versus Wembanyama, talk a little bit Milwaukee Bucks, and do a deep dive on Keegan Murray. Great show for you planned today. Legs, how you doing?
I'm great. You're catching me life on the road, the life of an NBA analyst out on the road. So you got me coming at you right now from New York City. And a light schedule last night, Adam, but good storylines. And I know I want to jump right into it. So you want to talk about Kings, and I think it's a great day to do it.
Definitely a great day to do it with De'Aaron Fox coming back and them looking like their old self. So I want to get into all that, but first got to tell you we are presented by DraftKings Fantasy Sports. Check out what DraftKings has to offer this season with code ALLNBA, because life's more fun when you're in on the action. DraftKings, the crown is yours. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Age and eligibility restrictions apply. Void where prohibited. See DraftKings.com for details. All right, man, let's get right into it with the Sacramento Kings. So they pick up the win last night. De'Aaron Fox comes back after a 5-game absence. And the story with the Kings is that they're now 5-4. They haven't looked like they did last year. They haven't looked like that yet this year. I think probably a lot of that has to do with De'Aaron Fox being out. But he comes back last night. And to me, Legs, they look like the team we expected them to be. Maybe for the first time all year, they look like the team. What did you see last night from that game that really stood out to you?
Yeah, I agree with you. It's the first time I recognized the same team we saw at the end of the year last year. And you remember the year that they had. And look, a lot went right for them last year, particularly from a health standpoint. There were a lot of injuries in the West, and I thought there was a void that somebody could grab if he could stay healthy and had great chemistry and enough talent. And they had all those things last year. So they're sitting there at a 3 seed, most of the year last year, and people were waiting for that to change, but they held on to it. Took a 50-point Game 7 out of Steph Curry to send them home, a historical game to send them home. And coming into this offseason, right, you expect that to just now be a continuation into this year. And they didn't have it because they had injuries to start the season. And so now you see last night De'Aaron Fox, and you see what this group looks like when they're healthy and when they're whole, and it's really special offensively what they bring to the table with that combination of Fox and Sabonis, and then a stable full of role players that on a given night, any number of those guys can go off and help you. But it's built around Fox and Sabonis. And watching him, De'Aaron Fox, control the game against Cleveland last night reminded me real quick why this team is one of the most interesting teams and one of the most entertaining teams in the entire league.
Do you think we're getting numb to the fact that the Kings put up 132 points last night, and I didn't even mention it at the top? Some of these scores this year are insane. I think 10 years ago, a team scores 132, and it's like Sports Center #1 story. But, that's kind of the era we're in. But at the same time, you look at how they got to 132 points. They score 33 in the first quarter, 35 in the second, 42 in the third quarter. The starting lineup began the game, closed the half, and then opened the third quarter with these huge runs. And to me, that's one of the major storylines here is De'Aaron Fox. First of all, it took him 6 seconds to get on the board. They get the opening tip, and he goes down and scores right away.
Right.
But De'Aaron Fox, with the shooters they have around him, with Sabonis and everything else, that's what, to me, stood out as you watch that group. And, man, they click into place, and they spread you out. They make some threes, and they just look so good.
So, and look, the Fox component is really unique. So I can just tell you, all the years I played and all the years since, when you're talking about a game plan defensively for any team in the league, when you go through that in a film session, and usually all you have is maybe a film session and a walkthrough that morning. You're not spending a bunch of time, multiple days. Like in college, you have 3-4 days to prepare for an opponent, right? Every day you're practicing against their sets. It's not the case in the NBA. You have a walkthrough in the morning or a film session in the morning to talk about them that night. And what that is predicated on is where the ball is going to be. That's the only way, if you think about it, you can come up with a game plan. When the ball's here and they're running this action, here is where we want to send the ball. Here's where the help is going to come from. Here's where our trap is going to be. Here's the rotations. But it's all predicated on the ball is in this specific place at this specific time. Well, guess what? De'Aaron Fox negates it all. Quickness negates defensive game plans more than anything else because you can't contain the ball at the point of attack. And that is what De'Aaron Fox does that is so special. You know, I talked about Maxey a lot. And obviously, you know, maybe I got to him too soon because he goes for 50 after I talked about it. But I said, you know, in a league full of quick guys, and then there's Tyrese Maxey. And guess what? You got to put De'Aaron Fox in there as well. It's just a different level with Fox especially, because even his handle is significantly better than Maxey's. His ability to manipulate the ball with that quickness means the ball is always someplace you didn't expect it to be. Defensively, you know what that causes? Miscommunications and guys being late because this isn't what it looked like at shoot-around this morning. It's totally different.
Right.
The ball's not where we thought it would be when it's coming at you with that kind of pace, right? And, you know, that to me is the biggest difference in their team, and you saw it last night. And then you're right, perfect complementary guys around them, you know, Sabonis and then all of these guys that know their role, fill their role, and they've got more than enough firepower every single night.
So this season, and I know it's a really small sample size, but this season, they're 21 and a half points better on offense with Fox on the court than with him off. And to your point, you know, it almost reminds me in part of players like Jokic or Luka, where they're so integral to the system that if they're out of there, nothing's going to work. And they have great shooting. They have great spacing around. They haven't shot the ball particularly well. We'll get to that here in a little bit. But they have great shooters. They have Sabonis who can play outside, play the handoff game, bring the defense out of the paint and up around the perimeter. But you have to have that rim pressure. You have to have the guy going at the basket to be able to do it. And so I think if there were any concerns about the Sacramento Kings, you know, coming into this without Fox, you see how different things are when he is putting that pressure on the rim. Last night, Legs, they made 20 3-pointers. They go 20 of 42 from three. And this is a team that has not been shooting the three ball very well, but they become one of, I think, 8 teams this season to knock down 23s. This is who they are. I mean, here's the graphic right there. The Pacers obviously are playing in same pace and getting their threes up. Dallas, we know they play that 4-out system. Luka generates a lot of threes. The Sacramento Kings last year were the number one offense. We expected them to be making threes this year. They hadn't been doing it. But then last night you see it and you're like, oh yeah, this isn't the last time they're going to hit 20 3-pointers. That looked more in line with what they're capable of, especially at home.
Yeah, defending the 3-point line, there's multiple ways you have to do that. Transition defense is a big one, and Fox is a guy that puts more pressure on you than just about any point guard in the league in transition attacking. So now you're running back, and you know it used to be you didn't even think about running with wing players and kind of staying close to them back in transition. Everybody's taught to run to the paint, flood to the paint, and then flare out. Well, that has changed a lot in the modern NBA. You see more teams kind of fanning out defensively because you have to, because guys are stopping at the 3-point line. But with a guy like Fox, you have to commit to get back to the paint, to the edge of the lane, because he's going to be at the rim if you're not. So transition opportunities are there. But then even in the half-court stuff, you're running ball screen, and when he turns the corner around a trap, you now have taken 2 defenders out of the play. That means the next guy who was supposed to be within striking distance of a 3-point shooter, if he doesn't fully commit to Fox as he turns the corner and leaves 2 guys in his rearview mirror, that's going to be a simple dribble drive to the rim for a layup or a lob dunk. So you do it, now there's the kick out to the wing for an open 3. So again, it's all predicated on that speed. You saw the firepower last night. 4 different guys make 3 or more, 6 for Huerter, 5 for Keegan Murray, 3 for Vezenkov, who came in and had 8 points in like 3 minutes when he checked in the game. And Malik Monk gives you 3. So 4 different guys, you know, have big nights, because 3 or more, you have a big night from the 3-point line. 4 different guys did that for them.
Yeah. Who is the best shooter on their team? I'm probably Kevin Huerter, wouldn't you say? I mean, they have a lot of candidates here. Vezenkov, if you just said empty gym shooter, maybe, but they have a handful of candidates for guys that can get threes up.
I love the way you put it. If I were to go and, I'm big on mechanics and, like, you know, you want to make an instructional video out of somebody's release, it's Vezenkov. But Huerter's the most dangerous. Herter's the most dangerous, and it's not as textbook. It's not by any means a textbook release or a beautiful picture perfect form. He finishes it that way, which most great shooters that don't have typical perfect mechanics, they do finish their shot the same way, and that's what Herter does as well. But the way he gets it into the cradle and the way it kind of comes off his hand, it doesn't look like picture perfect. But he is so dangerous. He gets it off quick. He had a step back last night, side step to his left, and then right after that, a catch and shoot off a down screen that was about 28 feet. I mean, these are deep, difficult shots when you're moving away from the basket, and Herter makes it look easy. So you're probably right. It's probably him.
One of the interesting things for me about this team, I think they are on the short list of starting lineups that really fit together. I think you look at Boston right now, and the numbers with Boston's starting lineup are just insane. We'll see if that normalizes throughout the course of the year. Denver obviously has an elite starting lineup. I look at Sacramento in a similar way, where it's not just that. I mean, they have talent; those guys are all good. There's nobody bad in the starting lineup or one dimensional. But it's the fit of those guys to me that is so exciting. I mean, you look at it. Fox has good size for a point guard, good length. Herter, Murray, Barnes, all are long, rangy wings, and then obviously Sabonis big. But the fit of them, you got shooters, you got cutters. Nobody really hogs the ball or steps out of the lines. In fact, I think one of the challenges for the Kings this year has been getting guys like Herter and Murray to take more shots. So you've got an unselfish group that fits together. Where do they rank to you in terms of starting lineups that fit, the pieces fit?
I think you'd probably put him right where you had him. I'd put him third. I think it'd probably put Boston and Denver ahead of them. And look, even Boston, they're incorporating two, major new pieces. So they're probably still kind of figuring it out, but they're 8-2 out of the gate, and they're not seem like they're having any problems. They're humming, and they've got continuity from their stars who have been there a while now together. So I'd probably put them third. I think some other teams, if you wanted to say that are getting there, it's unfortunate what happened with Kelly Oubre, because I thought Philadelphia is getting there, and they still are because of what Maxey and Embiid look like together. Tobias Harris looks super comfortable. You look, I think their top four scorers all shoot over 50% from the field. I mean, that you don't get better than that when you talk about chemistry. I put them there. I think OKC's starting five has developed into a great unit that really read each other well, have all the right necessary complementary parts, no glaring deficiencies. But I think you're probably right. I think the Kings are probably there in the top three with just pieces that fit and having a little bit or a lot, in some cases, of everything you need.
I think the Pacers are an interesting one, maybe less of a two-way lineup, but I think that they have a pretty interesting fit as well. And then Minnesota, I know it's the Twin Towers, so you have to put a caveat there, but I liked some of all the bases that they have covered between their lineup as well. So it's kind of an interesting – the reason I find this so interesting is, I think we might be in a transitional era between the super team molds and this – no, they need to fit mold. And you look at teams we didn't mention, the Phoenix Suns, which we haven't seen them. They look like they're going to debut their big three tomorrow night. But the Phoenix Suns, the LA Clippers, the LA Lakers, those teams you wouldn't say, no, that's a starting five where it all fits. They have talent, but it's not there. But
you could also say the Milwaukee Bucks, because they're obviously trying to figure out what that's going to be. They're not even close to what their peak is going to be when you incorporate a guy like Lillard, and he's trying to find his way right now in a new situation. So you're right. I mean, and that's why it's not easy. Basketball is a game of rhythm and continuity and feel and guys understanding each other. It takes time. When it's played the right way, it takes time. And for all those teams you mentioned, adding star talent and ball dominant players and putting them out there together and saying, hey, go make it work. It's better to have pieces that complement each other perfectly. And then when you get that for multiple years, the same unit, now you got teams that are really hard to defend.
The starting lineup's great. The depth, I'm a little curious what you think about. Vesenkov, obviously a little bit more of a one-dimensional guy. That guy can go in and fill it up, and it does provide them, to me, and it hasn't yet this year, but I think it will now with Fox back. It will provide them shooting lineups almost any time. Like their staggered lineups are going to have shooting. Their bench lineups are going to have shooting. They're going to have some great shooters no matter what they throw out there. But after you get paid, and then Malik Monk, obviously a great play. He's their most reliable guy off of the bench. And with him also, we're going to have great shooting. Keon Ellis was starting there for a while in Fox's absence. I don't know what you think of him. And then Chris Duarte is a guy to me that has, not really popped for them. So I look at them and I go, I love their starting lineup. I love Malik Monk as a sixth man. Vasenkov is probably going to have some good and bad games, throughout the year. Are they a little thin in your mind?
Yeah, they are a little bit thin. I think you didn't mention. Did you mention Davion Mitchell? Because I do think he's.
I did not.
He's an important piece, and I think they're fine there. I mean, it's they collectively a little bit small at the lead guard position when you've got Fox and Mitchell, and they do play some minutes together. But in Mitchell, you've got a guy that's an absolute committed defender and can really harass people and put a lot of pressure on the ball. He runs a team pretty well, has some scoring outbursts when you need it. So I think they're pretty good shape there. But overall, yeah, you'd like to see them have more depth. With the way that I look at teams like this, they've got some wings that have got pretty good length. And so what that does is your starting five sometimes becomes your bench. And I think that's the case here. Like you could bring in Mitchell as your backup point. Well, then De'Aaron Fox is now your backup too when you do that. That's a pretty good backup too if that's De'Aaron Fox, right? So same thing with guys like Keegan Murray and Harrison Barnes and these guys that can switch off guard to four. You could go with a smaller lineup, play those guys together. So just in terms of writing names on a sheet of paper, yeah, it's not too far before you start to go, okay, is this enough when you look at what some other teams have? But I also think their starting five gives them more versatility and rounds out their overall depth. So like them to be deeper, but I still think it's enough to be a factor every night because of the way that they play together.
To give you a sense of how much this season for them has been noise through 9 games, they currently rank 30th in fast break points. They were 7th last year. So you take Fox out of the equation and all of a sudden they're dead last in fast break points. We know that's not going to be the case. They're 26th in effective field goal percentage. So they're not making their shots this year. Last year they were 2nd. And they're 15th in offense. Last year they were 1st. So I think that this first 9 games has been weathering the injury storm. And, they lost to the Rockets twice. They lost to the Warriors twice, which I think is meaningful. Because they need to get over that mental hurdle. A young team sometimes have a mental block ahead of them in a team. So losing to them out the gate, I think, is sort of a big deal. But at the same time, I don't think we have a great sample size from them. What do you think they need to accomplish this year? If you could put it down and say, okay, they have 82 games. Last year you were a 3 seed. You can be a regular season team. What needs to be accomplished by this team between now and the end of this regular season?
Well, if you're talking about just in terms of goals and where you say that's, I think, kind of maybe maxing out what you were this year, or the not feeling like you're stalled, you got to win a series, and that's easier said than done. Look, talked about what it took a year ago for Golden State to survive that.
Yeah,
you have to win a series, and right now, with what they have and everybody healthy, I'd give them a great chance to beat almost anybody outside of Dallas in a 7-game series right now, because these teams are still major works in progress in trying to figure out their new parts and find a rhythm offensively and defensively. So right now, they'd be there. We'll see what happens by the end of the year. What does Phoenix end up looking like once those guys have an extended period of time to play together? I think Golden State's best basketball is ahead of them. Clearly, the Lakers are not a 500 team. You're going to hear more from them later. So there's the depth of the West is so good that maybe winning a series, depending on the matchup they end up getting, isn't realistic. But I just think based on what you did a year ago and going forward to continuity and what some of these other teams are facing in the West, that should be what you're thinking. Look, and no team thinks, okay, let's just win a series, we accomplish everything. Every team thinks, hey, you know what? If we're this good, and we might be a 50-plus win team, then we should think about getting to the finals. And that should be their internal goal. But outside looking in like us, realistically, you'd like to see them win a series and take that step forward and taste that second-round pressure. Because when you get down to the Final Four in the Western Conference and what that's going to look like, and it might be Denver, Phoenix, these are 2 of the teams that probably got more votes than anybody to win it all this year going into the season. And then you'll pick who the third team would be with the Kings. If you're in a Final Four with that group, man, you've had one hell of a year, and then not get smoked Like, because that's the thing. You can win a series, have a 50-plus win year, Adam, and then go in and play Denver and get swept or lose 4-1, and you go into the summer and you have such a bad taste in your mouth, it doesn't feel like you had a better year than the year before.
Right.
And so it's not just win around, it's win around, and then in that next round, throw a scare into one of these teams that goes on to win a championship or plays in the finals and really give them all they can handle. Now,
But I
think you maxed out who you are this year.
But I even mean in the buildup towards that. If you talk about in preparation for a playoff run, to me, it's defense. Like, I look at this team and I go, they're going to be able to score. I mean, I don't know if they're going to be the number one offense like they were last year, just because there's other teams that are going to be contending for that title.
Right.
But I think the thing that if you're going to take this team seriously, they have to be more of a defensive-minded team than what they were last year. Right now, they're 17th in defense. Again, throw out the numbers because I don't think that it's been a good sample size for them just yet. They are second right now in limiting fast break points. I think Mike Brown, obviously, where do you start when you're trying to build defense? Well, let's take away the easy stuff and fast breaks. Okay, let's be more mindful of how we handle that. But I also look, and one of the reasons we want to talk about Keegan Murray here in a second coming up is they do have some length, and they do have the ability to be just kind of a switchy defense who can put guys on and just use their length. And last night was big, obviously, for Keegan Murray. We'll get to him in a minute. But when you look at the pieces of this team, what is their upside this year defensively, and what is the key piece for them becoming good?
Yeah, I think that they're a team that I will say this: what it takes to necessarily win a championship and has changed a little bit, right? The metric was, well, you can't win a championship unless you're elite level defensively. I don't know that that's necessarily the case. I'm not saying you can be bad defensively. You can be a team that sort of takes that end of the floor for granted and then just go be great offensively and outscore people. No, that's not going to work because the possessions become more difficult to execute in a series. When teams lock into what you want to do, everything gets harder. The possessions are slower. The scores come down. So, yeah, you have to get stops. But I think you can be above average defensively and great offensively and give yourself a real chance. So can they be above average defensively? Yes, I think they can. I do think they've got the quickness and the length on the wings to be able to do that. Sometimes when you score really easily, you take your foot off the other end a little bit. And I think maybe they fall into that trap sometimes because this is a team that can have 35 to 40-point quarters regularly. And when that's the case, I just don't know if you are in that mindset that you really need to buckle down to that extent. You know what I mean? You're going to be okay because you're going to put up a lot of points. You're going to be in the game because we're going to score against any defense. So I think it's a mentality around it and a challenge every day that Mike Brown needs to give them, that we need to regardless of what we're doing offensively, and if we're scoring easily and we're scoring on multiple trips and stringing buckets together, we need to have the mentality and the approach that every possession challenge ourselves to pay attention to detail and to lock in on game plans and make things difficult for teams. So I think it's more of a mindset. I do think the personnel is there to be better than they are. It's a mindset, and it's just an approach every day and a mantra almost that has to permeate your locker room. And I'm not there every day to know if that's the case right now.
Yeah. I'm going to put it a different way, and I'm curious what you think of this. Because we asked earlier, are we in the offense wins championships era? I think that's going too far, but it is kind of worth noting that some of your best teams are offensive, not necessarily defensive. I think in both cases, on offense and defense, it's more about two things, the tension between two things. How dominant is your best punch? Does anybody have something that can take away your best punch? And how versatile are you? And that's for both ends of the court. So if you have a great punch and no one can stop it, you can ride that all the way to a championship. If you don't, or if somebody does stop your best punch, what's your second best punch? What's your third? Where do you go? And I think it's the same defensively. There are teams that are really good at a lot of defense but have a hole. And if they face a team that can take advantage of that weakness defensively, then all of a sudden their defense looks terrible. And I want to bring this back to the Kings now because I look at them and I go, all right, Sabonis, the center, a bunch of rangy wings, point guard. That works. Do they have a small ball center option? Because sometimes you need a switch everything type lineup, even whether it's a starting lineup or off the bench or just a specific matchup that you're going to have to go to in the playoffs to get stops. And I look around and I go, I don't know if they have that. I don't know who their best small ball switch everything lineup would be if that's even an option.
They don't have that. They don't have that because to be able to do that and accomplish that, then your small forward / undersized power forward, right? Whoever that guy is, has to be able to then go and be someone that can protect the defensive glass, that can do a great job if they're switched off onto a big that actually knows what they're doing with their back to the basket. That person's got to be able to guard a guy like that. So you're talking about on this team, the only two guys that fall into that category that play enough for you to matter would be Keegan Murray and Harrison Barnes. And I don't know that either one of those guys would fall into that category like some other teams are capable of playing. Because even a team like, say, the Bucks, right? You want to go smaller? Well, I guess that would include Giannis, right? Since he's really a small forward. Well, he's 6'11". Right. I mean, his fingertips touch both sidelines when he puts his arms out.
Right.
And that's your smaller lineup because he's a 3 playing the center, right? And so it's not fair. I mean, Golden State obviously has gotten away with it for years because Draymond Green can, number one, as your center with that lineup, one, he is still super incorporated into what you're doing offensively because of his passing ability, and he's the main engine in terms of reads. But on the other end of the floor, he's boxing out every big. You got to come over his back to get a defensive board. He is constantly in the way on penetration. So even though he's not going to go above the rim too often to alter shots, doesn't matter. He does it differently. He's clogging up the lane on drives and post-ups by positioning, drawing contact, drawing offensive fouls, those kinds of things. And he likes it. He puts the hard hat on and he goes to work. That's not really what Harrison Barnes and Keegan Murray are going to do. And after that, you don't have much left in terms of options of guys that are in your rotation that could go fill that role. So I think that's a fair point.
Let's take our first break. On the other side, we want to do a deep dive on Keegan Murray, who is maybe the most interesting player on the roster this year. The most unknown, has the highest ceiling floor kind of gap there. So we'll get into him. But in the meantime, while you're waiting, throw us a like. If you're enjoying the show, don't forget to subscribe on wherever you get your podcast. Subscribe to the YouTube channel so you can join us every day and join the chat like Ted and Grace and some of the other people who have been here since day one. Let's take a quick break. NBA fans, the wait is over. Basketball is back, and DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA, is celebrating with an unbeatable offer. New customers can score $200 instantly in bonus bets for throwing down just $5 on the NBA. Win or lose, it doesn't matter. You'll start the season with an instant dub. And the DraftKings parlays, everyone gets a shot at a bigger basketball payout. You could bet on every single in-season tournament game that's happening tonight. I think there's like 10 of them or something like that. You can put a little bit of action on every single one, and if you hit that one, you got a major payday. Basketball's more fun when you're in on the action. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code ALLNBA. New customers can get $200 in bonus bets instantly for betting just $5. Only at DraftKings Sportsbook with code ALLNBA. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, you can call 877-8-HOPE-NEW YORK or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, licensed partner Golden Nugget Lake Charles, Louisiana. 21 or older, age varies by jurisdiction, void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See sportsbook.com, DraftKings.com/basketball terms for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. One of the things I've liked about the show are some of the feedback that I've enjoyed most, Legs, and I've seen it maybe a dozen times in the comments and feedback and ratings and reviews, is that people say they give great analysis, they're focused on basketball, none of the other BS, but they both love the game. You can tell that these guys are liking what they're talking about, and that's what I love. Like, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. We're not just hyping up guys here or there, but you could tell that we're enjoying what we're talking about. And that's one of the things that I'm glad that shines through, because Legs, we're halfway into this. We're almost behind schedule every single day because we get going and we can't stop.
No, listen, I tell people all the time, look, I get paid to do this and to watch games. And if I didn't, I'd still watch. But I'll be honest, maybe not quite as much if I was doing it for free. Let's just be honest, right? So that it does help. But no, I love the sport. I love the sport. And I fell in love with the sport when I was 14 years old. It was a little bit of a late bloomer to the game, and it's been my life ever since. So, and you can tell when we talk about it. And I think the reason I love it so much is because when I am watching it, there is every single night, even I don't even know how many thousands of games I have watched or
Yeah.
participated in. Every single night, there's something different, a nuance to a new player, team, whatever it may be, that's new and fresh. And I want, oh man, I want to dive into this tomorrow. So I'm glad that comes across because I think that it's something that's true to both of us. We do actually really love watching these games as fans and then with a mind toward, hey, this is really interesting to talk about.
Yeah. A guy that's very interesting to talk about is Keegan Murray. He is the most interesting player on the Kings roster, in my opinion, in part because a lot of the other guys are known commodities, or at least you know the range of what they're going to be. Keegan Murray, to me, can be his upside is really high. I really like this guy. He's a shooter, although he has not been shooting so far. He's off to a rough start. He's shooting 39% from the field and 30% from three. That's below, what they were hoping for him. But here's what I like. Mike Brown is asking him to take more and more shots, and he's getting his threes up, just not hitting them right now. And maybe the adjustment to volume is part of why he's missing. Maybe he's more dependent on De'Aaron Fox. I think there were some numbers I was looking up about what an impact De'Aaron Fox has on him specifically. Creating that penetration and kicking out, that's his game, knocking down those kickouts. But what I like is he could be just a shooter who's an okay defender and plugs in some gaps, maybe grabs a rebound here or there. Last night, one of the stories was that he guarded Donovan Mitchell, did a great job of guarding him. So that's what stands out to me, is that this is a guy that seems committed to being more than just a shooter.
And the thing, you're 100% right. I'm glad we're going to start there because when I was watching the game, and this has been something that, you want to see, how committed is he going to be to becoming just all-around player that affects the game in every way, more than just a guy that's judged on catch and shoot three-point shots. Yeah. Is he going to be able to get there? And to do that, you have to take on the challenge on the other end of the floor. You also have to do things offensively to add a handle and a ball screen offense to your game and a mid-range to your game if you really want to get there, right? And as the fourth pick in the draft, I think that's something that they should be able to expect of him. I don't necessarily think you take a guy that you think is just going to be a really good catch and shoot three-point player with the fourth pick in the draft. So they obviously have expectation for that. So let's start defensively. I agree. Saw it last night. Now, look, I see some nights where teams say, or not teams, people that watch it and react, right, and say, oh, did you see him last night? He was guarding such and such for X amount of minutes. And I watched the same game, and I'll be like, yeah, he was guarding him, didn't look thrilled about it.
Right.
He was given an assignment, and whoever this particular player may be, I'm saying on a given night. Last night, Keegan Murray wanted that assignment. Yep. So he was given it, wanted it, and I'm watching him get low. Mitchell is so explosive when he comes off the ball screen, and he kind of throws the ball out in front of himself, and by the time he runs and gets it, he is separated 8 to 10 feet from that screen. And he goes right into that shot from the three-point line where he's elevating 30 inches when he jumps on a shot. Not a lot of guys jump that high. Mitchell gets all the way off the ground. So my point is, if you are late on that screen, or you're not willing to fight over that screen and really chase, you're not getting there to bother him. He was in a stance. He was low. He was in a crouch. He was affecting him with pressure and then also anticipating the screen, getting over the screen. He was chasing him around off the ball screens. And he had multiple efforts on the same play when Mitchell would give it up and get it back on the same possession. These are all the kinds of things you look at and say, how intent is he tonight? How much does this mean to him? It meant a lot to Keegan Murray last night. That is a great sign of his development here early in his career. And I think the more praise he gets, and he'll hear about it today, and any feedback that he gets, and watches it in film, guess what that does, man? That's like you talk about throwing a carrot to you and the adrenaline you have to want to keep doing that. Because for Keegan Murray, the offensive end has always been natural to him, right? He knows I'm going to have good nights that end of the floor. This end of the floor probably has never gotten a lot of praise. And so to have a night like that against a marquee high-level opponent and you get a lot of, praise and adulation for what you did, that is going to really bode well, I think, for him going forward, and something for us to watch his continued development.
And Mike Brown got the defensive player of the game chain last night. It was his 400th win as a head coach. That detail courtesy of a fantastic blog, the Kings Herald, which I read their gamer last night and got some really fun little nuggets. But But if it wouldn't gotten to Mike Brown, if it weren't for the 400th win, it would have definitely gone to Keegan Murray yesterday. He was phenomenal on defense, and like you said, it was a commitment. And here's what I love, Legs. He's been in a shooting slump all year. I think he's at like 16% from three or something over the last handful of games going into last night. I think while De'Aaron Fox is out, he was shooting like 15%. Last night he goes 5 of 8. And I always find this funny because conventional wisdom would say, all right, you have a tough defensive assignment. You have to fight through screens. You have to get down in a stance like you're saying. Your legs are going to be tired. You're going to be short. The opposite was true. It almost got him going. He started hot, missed a couple. The defense picked up even more, and then he found a rhythm later in the game. So to me, that's what's encouraging is you talk about being more than just a shooter. To be able to play defense against the other team's best player, who, by the way, is a nightmare guarding downhill, and then to also be a three-point shooter, that's an all-star. If you can replicate that over the course of a career, that's an all-star career.
No doubt. And look, I'm glad you went there. So you and I think before we even began all of these shows together, we talked about some of the guys I thought were spotlight guys. Like going in, these are guys that can tip the scale a little bit for teams because that's what I want to talk about. If this breaks, then this team has a chance, right, to reach their ceiling. Keegan Murray is one of the guys I mentioned, and I don't know if you remember. You remember the comp I used and said if he can get to this level, it was Chris Middleton. Now, people might say, wait, it's 4th pick in the draft. Is that high enough bar? Well, let me ask you a question. If I told Kings fans, if I said to you, Keegan Murray, after a dozen years in the league, will have a career scoring average of 17, average over 20 4 different times, shoot 46% from the field for his career, shoot just under 40% from the three-point line as a shooter. And by the way, Middleton averaged 4.2 rebounds for his career. He was over 6. I looked it up 3 times in his career. Never been at 6.9. That's where Keegan Murray is right now for the year. Now, I don't know if he'll end up there, but he's already right now this year rebounding at a clip higher than anything ever Chris Middleton did. So you might think when you hear the two names, you think, oh, Chris Middleton, he has been a very nice player in this league for a long time. But, man, Keegan Murray was in the draft. Would you take what I just gave you? And guess what that would mean? If he turns into Chris Middleton over the next couple of years at like that level of consistent play as your third scorer with Fox and Sabonis, man, you've got a chance now, a real chance, particularly when some of these teams in the West, it's constantly revolving door with parts. They're always reinventing themselves, trying to find the next thing. If you can keep Fox, Sabonis, and he turns into a Chris Middleton clone. Now, I will say this, offensively, to be able to do that, he's going to have to improve his handle. He's going to have to be a little bit more aggressive and better at looking at mid-range shots because I think that's what separates Middleton from a lot of guys. He is a mid-range killer. 16 to 20 feet contested jump shots. He's 6'8". He can get it off. The Bucks don't win a championship without that element on their team. You need a guy that can answer the middle area of the floor and have a solution, particularly late in the clock. Go get one at 6'7", 6'8", pull up, shoot over the top, and make a tough shot. He doesn't really do that much in their offense yet, so let's see if he can add that. But I think if this guy ends up having a similar career the first 10, 12 years of his career as Chris Middleton's career has been, you're in pretty damn good shape in Sacramento.
Well, he's so young that, we can talk about layers. Like every year you add a little bit of a layer to it. So last year, he gets his feet wet in the NBA. This year, I think it's probably defense. I think that he probably needs to build the foundation there before anything else and then become a more confident shooter. We know that Mike Brown's wanting him to take a bunch of threes. So getting the volume up, having more confidence to get the quick trigger, and then being a competent and maybe even a go-to defensive player out on the perimeter. That would be the foundation I would look at this year. But you're talking about adding more of an off-the-dribble game, adding more of a mid-range game. And Chris Middleton can put his hip on you. He could play back to the basket and one dribble sidestep and get those up. Is that something you want to start seeing right now? If you're building a healthy process for this guy, because he's so young, is that something you start working on now? Or is that something that you need a foundation before you start to add that?
No, I think that's the kind of thing that you're constantly talking to him about and tweaking. He's working with the player development guys and adding that. And I think even last night in the first half of the game, I thought there were some times where he got his hands on the basketball and he didn't really explore at all what he might have. in terms of matchup or space when he caught it with one defender on that side of the floor. And because he was very programmed on what the next action was and what they were trying to do on that set. And look, I get it. He's a young player, and that's part of how you feel when you come into a team with some established players. It's hard to find those moments. Those are the things I think in film with the coaching staff and then with the player development guy working on your skill set, you can identify a couple more opportunities a half where, hey, right here, by the way, do you see this? You got this guard switched onto you or picked you up in transition and the ball went to you first. I'm cool. This is Mike Brown talking. I'm cool with you putting your back on that guy. And let's back down a little bit. And let's see now you start reading the floor. I'm good with you trying to find an opportunity for yourself right there where you back him down, shoot a turnaround jumper over him, go into the baseline or get into the middle lane, maybe try to draw some contact. It's only a couple of times right now, a half, that maybe he had a little something more to explore there. Now, if he hasn't put in the daily work of like the handle and playing with your back to the basket where you're comfortable, then no, maybe he's not ready for that. But I think that is, the next step for him. And even if you just see small tastes of it on a given night, that's going to be something that's going to be interesting because now these conversations are taking place and he's starting to process those situations.
What I said earlier about teams, you have your best punch, but then how much versatility do you have? So a team overloads and has the ability to shut you down. We talk about De'Aaron Fox. He's hard to shut down, but there are teams that maybe are designed to be able to do that. Domantas Sabonis gives you another counter punch there in that two-man game. But that's what you're talking about with Keegan Murray is right now you've got Malik Monk, off the bench who can give you some shot creation and different things. If Keegan Murray can become Chris Middleton, that's a whole nother wrinkle to your offense. So now a team overloads on De'Aaron Fox, overloads on Domantas Sabonis, and meanwhile now you've got one-on-one, or you've got Keegan Murray with the mismatch that you can go to and steadily get a diet of high-value shots. So that's what he represents when we talk about right now. They're looking to win a series. They're looking to build. But if they're looking to win a championship, he's probably, in my mind, part of a big three. I think they have a big two right now. Yeah. He would be the big three.
Yeah, and look, he's so young, and that might not be for a few years. You think about it. If he gets to the point where he's 23, 24 years old and starting to come into his own at that time, man, well, all right, you got a long way to go at that level. So it doesn't happen quickly, but I completely agree with you. Because I think they have a chance to develop not only like a third guy as their big three in Keegan Murray, it's because of the chemistry already with Fox and Sabonis. You'll have a big three that work great every night, and you get something that looks like Denver now. Not that, you don't have a Jokic, I get that. But my point is, with Jokic and Murray and then, even adding an Aaron Gordon or a Michael Porter Jr., take your pick. Either one of those two guys on a given night, they're so comfortable with each other. And that's where Keegan Murray has a chance to give them that, because I think the talent is there, the skill is there. And he has nights like last night where he's a two-way player at a really high level on both ends of the floor. Those are massive confidence builders for young players. And so keep an eye. Maybe he has these little spurts throughout the year where he puts together runs of 4 or 5 games that look like last night. Now I think we all look at the Kings a little bit differently what their ceiling is.
Quick housekeeping note. S. Sato reminds me, Sacramento has the defensive player of the game crown, not the chain, which I love, by the way. Fits so perfect for the Kings. They do that between that and the beam. They have some of the best little bits for their team. And by the way, some great fans, man. That place last night, you could tell that game meant a little something for them. Having Fox back, and that crowd was going nuts.
I got to comment on that. So when I was in the league, that was during a time and the Kings were not very good. They had some down years during that time. And still, when you go to Sacramento as an opposing player, it was unlike literally any other arena in the league where fans would be like 10 deep surrounding the court during warm-ups when you're just shooting around and I never
a college game.
It really was. And it's like there's just man, is that a home court advantage in that building. And when they're good, and it's very few places really, when you're watching the game on television, do you completely feel the energy in the building and what that's like. that's on a short list of places that give you that. So you're 100% right. They are all about that team. And they're not fair weather, man. They're there for them through good and bad, through a 6-0 run by the opponent. I played in some cities, 6-0 run to start the game. The Boo Birds were coming, So I played a couple places like that. That's not the case in Sacramento, man. They're going to give you the full 48 to try to get this thing together and pull out a win, and they're behind you the entire time.
My last note on Sacramento and on Keegan Murray as well is that Mike Brown, he's coached in Cleveland, he's coached in LA, now he's up in Sacramento. To me, this is such a good fit. He's such a great coach we always talk about coaches like we do players, that they're good or bad. Sometimes it's like, hey, this is what he's good at. This personality of a team, this style of a team, this dynamic. And to me, I look at Keegan Murray and I look at the Sacramento Kings and I go, man, I think they're going to get the most out of him, in part because I think Mike Brown is the right guy to kind of foster them along. So I just wanted to throw that detail in there.
I like that. And Mike Brown, by the way, started out with me in Washington, his first gig in the NBA, and he was a workout guy for us. And I knew then he had the personality for the stuff. He's a confidence builder. He knows how to talk and communicate with players, which is very important.
And that's what I love. There was that funny moment, like first game of the season or second game of the season, where Keegan Murray passes up a shot and Mike Brown grabs a sink off and runs him to the bench and it's like, get him out of there. And Keegan Murray sees it and jacks up a three and hits it. And Mike Brown's like, I think he yelled something at Mike Brown, like, sit him back down. And I just love that kind of stuff. Like, all right, the message was received. You got to shoot the ball, and there you go. Let's very quickly, because we've only got about 15 minutes here, but another game that happened last night, Celtics-Knicks. The Celtics hit a little bit of a rough patch there for a second, dropped a couple games, Minnesota 76ers, no shame there. Those are tough teams. Bounce back. They get 17 out of Jason Tatum in the fourth quarter. What did you see from this game, and what did you see from that fourth quarter?
Just an unreal closing flurry, and Tatum is one of the best in the league at having these moments late where it's not just, okay, he made the big shot. No, it's a string of shots that he puts together. And a lot of times it's from the 3-point line. And he can get a sidestep or back step off on anyone at any time. And he had two of them during that stretch last night where it looks like he's got no room, including a huge one against Julius Randle in the right corner where he had the ball maybe 6 feet off the baseline in the corner, Randle up within arm's length where he could touch him with his hand, and lightning quick, he just goes step to the right, like takes himself all the way down to the baseline as far as you can go, where he's basically behind the backboard to escape Randle and just rises up and drains a three from that spot. And you're like, man, how many times has he done this kind of thing? I do sometimes wonder if he shoots too many threes throughout the course of the game, it actually helps the defense, but it's such a weapon for him. I don't know if that's maybe an unfair criticism because he tends to rely on that shot in big spots because he knows he can get it off and he won't get doubled. He won't see traffic because he's not driving. He can get that off one-on-one against any defender at any time because of his separation and length. And he did it last night, basically closed that game out.
The other note I have, Porzingis is just off to an incredible start. He was a game-high plus 19 last night. He had 21 points, 7 of 11 shooting. And we knew this would be a good fit. I mean, it wasn't a shock that he would work out here. He's averaging 20 points a game on 57, 41, 84 splits. That's not just 50-40, but almost 60-40 splits. Is this like a hot start from him? Do you expect this to continue? Like, what are you seeing from him? Because right now he's looking like the best version of himself.
It's not a hot start. This is, and I remember the day that this went down. I mean, went on the air the next morning and said I loved it. And at the time, I thought the reaction was like split. I was surprised actually at the number of people that didn't think this was going to be a difference maker for Boston. Because here's the thing about Porzingis. I knew he was going to fit in great with their style because there's an awful lot of one-on-one and breakdown, ball screen stuff out of Tatum and Brown, and they're so relentless in their attack. There's all kinds of kick-out space for Porzingis. And he doesn't just go to the line at 24 feet to spot up. He goes to 27, 28 feet. So it's hard to get back to him. So I knew he's going to get all the open looks that he wants, and he's a big-time three-point shooter. It's also, people forget, he can play with his back to the basket as your primary option if one of those guys is on the bench. And this time off the floor, the next 3 trips, we like this matchup. We can throw it to him, Now he's not going to hold his position in the low post and drop step you to death, but he's going to catch it in mid post, take 2 dribbles, keep you on his back, and turn at 7-3 and shoot over the top and get that off whenever he wants. He also is a very good slasher from the weak side to catch and finish with dunks. And you don't sacrifice that a lot defensively because of his ability to track guards and protect the rim. I loved the fit from the beginning, and this is not surprising to me, and I do not think there will be any big decline at some point, and this is just guy getting out of the gates really quickly, and then he'll level off. I think that he's going to have a great year for them, and it gives them, I think, their best chance they've had at winning a championship.
Man, that's strong. Von Allen in the chat says, he's talking about an 8-man rotation that I'm guessing he's talking about the Knicks, because both teams, Celtics and Knicks, both ran an 8-man rotation last night. Not too surprising. This was, I don't want to say a measuring stick game. I think more for the Knicks than maybe for the Celtics. The Knicks, they're right there. You keep talking about the Eastern Conference has a handful of teams, and then you're looking to see who's the next team, who breaks into that Philadelphia, Boston range. We'll pencil Milwaukee in there, even though they haven't necessarily looked like it. We expect they will get there at some point. The Knicks are a team like the Cavs that expect it. I don't know if the Knicks have a great win this year. They do have a win over Cleveland where they smacked them and then played on a second night of a back-to-back and then lost to Cleveland. They have a win over Atlanta. They have a win over the Clippers, Charlotte, and San Antonio. Their losses come to the teams that they want to measure themselves against: Milwaukee, and then 2 losses to Boston. So what have you seen from the Knicks? And just kind of quickly, what's your analysis of them early on, and how much are you buying them?
The problem I have with the Knicks, every time I start to, and look, they play hard, they compete, they're tough, they're physical. There's a lot I like about them that help you win. What I always get back to, though, every time I start to think that, hey, you know what, the Knicks are interesting, man. I'd like to see them play Boston or Milwaukee or one of these teams. And I start to think about the inconsistencies in their best players offensively, and not Brunson necessarily, but Randall and Barrett. Barrett, you're going to have them both play well and be consistent when you play either one of those teams in a 7-game series. And I'll throw Philly into the mix too, the way they look. And do you buy into that? Brunson is, I think, now past that point where you doubt that. Like, he's a big game player. You expect him to play well on a big stage, bright light. You've done it for most of his life. You kind of know that that's what you're going to get. I don't know if I feel that way necessarily about Julius Randle, some of the struggles he's had in the postseason, RJ Barrett. It's hard for me to go there with those guys, and ultimately I think that ends up being their undoing in terms of why I don't think I can put them, quite even. I know they're not in the category of those other 3 teams, really. I don't think. They're not really, to me, even like they're standing there right outside the window looking in that room. I feel like they're maybe, a few steps down the block still looking at the house that those 3 teams are in, but not like staring in the window like I want to come in there and join this party. I don't think the Knicks are there because I think offensively I'm not bought in that there will be efficiency and consistency when you have to have it.
Yeah. All right. Let's wrap up today by looking ahead. We are off tomorrow. We're back Thursday and Friday. Our typical schedule is going to be Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, usually around 10 o'clock, give or take a little bit as we adjust, obviously, to both of our busy schedules here. Tonight's a big matchup. Wemby versus Chet. I'm excited for this one, man. This is the marquee one. We can look at the stats here, pull the stats up between these 2 guys. They're actually more identical, I think, than – there's the narrative out there that Wembanyama, he's run away. He's already locked up the Rookie of the Year award. But you look at these numbers, outside of points, we're almost identical. And then the efficiency, way in Chet Holmgren's favor. They're in different scenarios. Wembanyama is sort of the centerpiece of a young up-and-coming team. Chet Holmgren fitting into an already established star and group of role players. What are you looking for tonight? And are you with me that maybe these 2 players are still competing with each other for Rookie of the Year?
Not only are they really competing for Rookie of the Year, we're only 10 games in, so it's silly to say, like, if I had to vote today, but I'm going to say it. If I had to vote today, I'd give it to Chet Holmgren.
There you go.
And look, and there's a reason. Look, stats, you can see the stats for yourself. Both guys put up good numbers, to start their career. Look at Chet Holmgren's field goal percentage, 3-point percentage, and more importantly, he's doing it on a team that is 6-4. They're winning games at a higher rate, and I think they're going to continue to do that all season. He's on a better team. And when you're doing it 30 minutes a night on a better team with higher expectations and you have similar stat lines and you're doing it more efficiently, I mean, come on. I think right now, so yes, it's absolutely. Now, here's the thing, and why he might end up falling into the shadows of Victor Wembanyama for this award. Wembanyama's unique nature of like this skill set in a body that length, at some point he really starts to get comfortable this year. I mean, you might see Wembanyama start to, 25 and 30 become regular for him. And if that's the case, his numbers start to really jump up the second half of the year. It's primarily a numbers-based award, right? Guys have won it on really bad teams. It's based on stats more often than not. I think if two guys are close statistically, okay, even in the ballpark together statistically, I tend to lean on the guy that is in a place that has higher expectations, with a little bit more pressure every night, because you're in tighter games that matter more often. And so I would lean that way if that's the case. But if you got 6-8 point separation in scoring average, rebounds go to the same guy, you know what I mean? Those shooting numbers pick up for Wembanyama. It might get to the point where like, okay, this guy's doing these ridiculous things every night, and now you go there. But right now, as we sit here, I think Holmgren's had equal impact on a better team. So I would lean that way.
Which scenario do you think is better for player development?
Oh, wow. I would say, honestly, probably going to a place where Chet Holmgren did, where you are playing meaningful games every night, okay? Right. And you have expectations, because Oklahoma City was one of the great stories in the league last year. So now, and they've got one of the top offensive players in the league on their team. Now they have expectations there. So you're better off going to a place where every day what you're expecting is different. The preparation is a little bit different, because you're expecting to win tonight and compete and make the playoffs and all those things, as long as you've got heavy minute usage in the rotation. So if Chet Holmgren was playing 12 minutes a night on a team like that, then I'd say no, you're better off playing 30 minutes a night on a team that might win 25, 30 games, San Antonio or whatever they're going to end up winning. You're better off there then, because nothing replicates playing time. Nothing.
Yeah.
But if you're getting those minutes and you're playing in a place that expects to win, that's the best case scenario for any rookie, because it's a healthy way to learn about being a professional.
Are you on SportsCenter tonight?
Not tonight. I'm actually going to be on NFL tomorrow night, Wednesday night. You'll see me post game. We got a good doubleheader tomorrow night.
Okay. Well, I'm looking forward to that matchup. I just think that one's going to be so fun. The game is on TNT tonight, but for a rookie matchup, I don't remember the last time there's been this much sort of hype around two rookies matching up, because of how similar they look and how unique their skill set is. I just think that one's going to be great. And Legs, your favorite. It's an in-season tournament game. It's not just a regular season game. It's a big-time in-season tournament.
Well, listen. That's why I requested off tonight, because I don't want to miss these in-season. I just want to watch as a fan. I got a big bucket of popcorn. I know the importance of this game, and if I forgot about it, I would be reminded by the court, I'm sure.
By the court. Well, speaking of in-season tournament,
bit more weight tonight.
Speaking of in-season tournament games here, rapid fire. 76ers play the Pacers tonight. If you recall, they just played each other a couple nights ago. Maxey went for 50. But last time that was a regular game. Tonight, in-season tournament, and both teams are 1-0 in their group. So this is actually, you could say this is is it Group B? Let me see here. Group A. This might be the most important game in Group A for who goes to the in-season tournament between those two, which will be big. Heat Hornets tonight. Both of those teams are 1-0 Group B, so another big-time matchup. Mavs Pelicans. The Mavs need to win tonight to stay alive for the in-season tournament. So again, I mean, we kind of having fun with this, but look, the Mavericks are a good team. Winning the in-season tournament would be big.
I was wrong. I can admit it. And here's where I was wrong. I do think early on here the players care. They're into this thing. They might not even have known they were going to be into it. Honestly, based on the people I talked to in the preseason and early in the offseason, I didn't was getting that vibe at all. But once you're kind of there, and now all of a sudden you put a graphic up on the screen that says, "Hey, Group B," is where you start thinking like this is the World Cup or something, and all of a sudden, that pride kicks in. And you want to be a team that maybe ends up in Vegas, but when this is all said and done in that Final Four. So I was wrong, man. These guys are into it.
And then the last one, I mean, there's a couple other ones that don't have as much significance, but the Wolves and the Warriors play tonight, and those teams are also both 1-0 in their group play. So we have a couple games that might act as the de facto championship tonight for in tournament play. So actually some sneaky good basketball, I think, on television tonight. And then on Wednesday, of course, we won't be back, but we will be talking about this game on Thursday. It was reported today that Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, all expected to play on Wednesday night. You'll be on Van Pelt after that game, but those guys expected to make their debut. So the Phoenix Suns finally get a look at what they look like here in the coming days. Legs, another great show, man. Great talking with you. It was fun doing the rundown.
We'll catch up with you on Thursday. Looking forward to it.
Everybody, do us a favor, rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Share with us as we're trying to grow this show. Word of mouth marketing, very big. Follow us on social. Hit the like button for us, and we'll see you guys on Thursday.